Hey, Christian Life, just wanted to come to you to encourage you with a word that God's been kind of putting on my heart, something I've been thinking about. The last few weeks I've used the example of the Good Samaritan and talking about just the issues that are happening around us. And what I had really wanted to make clear was that as I read this story, and it's an awesome story. We've all read it. We all heard it through Sunday school or throughout growing up. It's a powerful story of love. But what has stuck out to me during this time with everything that's happening around us is the fact that the Good Samaritan was not concerned with making sure the man that was beaten on the side of the road, making sure that he knew that all lives mattered. He was deeply concerned with making sure that that man knew that his life mattered, that hurting life mattered. And he stopped doing whatever he was doing, stopped traveling to wherever he was going. And the main concern in his heart was this hurting individual. And that's just been something that's really speaking to me. Something that's really been kind of laying heavy on me, and how does that play out in my life? And when I think about that story, we can easily pass off or begin to question, how in the world did somebody pass by a beaten and hurting man? How do you just pass by, or not even just pass by, but worse, cross to the other side and get as far away from that hurting individual as you can? How do we do that? Like, how does someone disconnect from people that much that they're able to cross to the other side and walk by that hurting individual? How do we not see that hurt in that person and have a desire to help? And I think the easy part for us is, when we look at that story, is to just put ourselves in the place of those individuals. Either I'm that person crossing by without helping, or maybe I see myself as the Good Samaritan. But in reality, that story also represents us and the love that Jesus has for us. We are that hurting person. We are beaten and left on the side of the road, desperately needing a miracle, desperately needing love, desperately needing care. And then comes Jesus, who's willingly giving his all for each one of us. Not his all includes knowing and willingly saying yes to dying for you and I. Putting everything else aside, where everybody else in the world is walking by us and they're crossing the other side and they're not dealing with our hurt and they're leaving us there beaten and hurting. And Jesus says, hey, I see you, I love you, and I'm coming to die for you. I'm coming to set you free, to care for you, to empower you into the calling I have on your life. You are worth it. You have a purpose. You have a destiny. And that's that amazing love that Jesus has for us, that honestly at times is such a tremendous mystery, and we don't understand it, and I know we don't deserve it. I don't deserve that type of love from him, and yet he loves, and yet he stops and he cares for me, and he picks me up, and he takes me to the end, and he makes sure that my wounds are cared for, that I receive the healing I need. And then he doesn't just quit. In the story, we see the Good Samaritan leaving his finances to care for him, checking up on him, making sure that he's going to return to make sure he's okay. This amazing love that Jesus has for you and I. And so I was just thinking about the word devotion, and we use it a lot of times in the church in a really religious, traditional way. We'll say, hey, have you done your devotions this morning? Or have I done my devotions this morning? But obviously the word devotions comes from the word devotion, right? We know that. What is devotion? Devotion is when I love someone or something so much that I am so loyal and devoted to that person. I'll do anything for them. I'm devoted. And yet we do that in our devotions. It becomes this religious activity. And so what I want to challenge us with, when we look at this story of the Good Samaritan, has something like our time with God, our devotions, has it become a religious activity to us? Or is it a relationship issue? Because that's what it becomes, is those men that were passing on the side of the road, crossing to the other side of the road, passing by the hurting, they were full of religion, but they didn't have relationship with the King. And that's what happens in our life. Is I've known so many people, and I've struggled with this at times in my life. I think everybody that's honest will say the temptation is to slip into religion and not relationship. But religion gets us to a place where we see hurt. We might even be able to recognize that hurt, but we're willing to walk to the other side of the road and pass by. Relationship with Jesus Christ, where He's living through us, we're never able to see hurt and not deal with it, and not ask to bring healing through Jesus, to not care for that hurt on the side of the road. And I want to press us that our devotion, something like that, our time with God, if it becomes religious activity, it is a slippery slope to where we are living a religious-based life in Jesus. And I'm telling you, that is a prison that will end in spiritual death, where we walk on the other side of the road from hurt, where we separate ourselves from that person and we say, well, I'm not that person. And yet each one of us were that person in desperate need of healing, in desperate need of saving. And Jesus was there for us. I have to make sure that I'm careful that my time with Him has not become this religious activity. I can't find, listen, sometimes I've met so many people that get so caught up in religion or theology or studies or sermons or debates, they miss out on the relationship with the King. And how sad that is. Listen, the only thing that I can experience His love is when I experience His love in reality in relationship with Him. I can't learn that from a sermon. I can't learn that from a book. I can't learn that from a debate or a study. I learn that from relationship with Him. I learn that from digging in and diving into spending time with Him and finding out who He is. And you know what happens when I do that? Then my devotions come alive. Then my time in the Word comes alive, because I start out with relationship. I start out with knowing who He is through experiencing Him. And then when I begin to sit down and read His words, they come alive to me. They're not just words on a paper. They're not just religious activity. They're not just something that becomes tradition that I do. It's based out of relationship with the King of Kings. Where when I see hurt, there's no way I can walk on the other side. There's no way we cross to the other side and walk on and say, hey, I've got things to do, places to be, debates to debate. I'm out to prove something to someone. Jesus Christ, we see all over the Gospels, most concerned about relationship with the apostles, where He was leading them to live in relationship on a daily basis, live in communion with Him, hand in hand, walking hand in hand through life. Because He knew at a certain time, physically, He wouldn't be there for them, but spiritually, He would be living through them. And they needed to understand that it was based out of relationship, not religion. And so I just want to encourage you today, as we've continued to wrap up this series in Nehemiah, and we began to talk about these issues that were going around us. Nehemiah's whole mission, we said this last Sunday, started with godly compassion for the people. And it ended with godly compassion. Godly compassion does not have seasons. It shouldn't come and go. It shouldn't turn on and off. Godly compassion only comes through having a relationship with Jesus Christ, where we see the hurting and we then ask God, Lord, even though the world might tell me this is a risk, I know it's not. God, what's my piece in the solution? What do you want me to own? What do you want me to do? What's my calling? What is my piece of this puzzle? I see the hurt around me. I see the issues around me. And Lord, I desire to be a part of your plan. I want to be used in your kingdom. Lord, I want you to use me to lead, to love the way you love me, because I was that person on the side of the road. And I needed your Savior. saving, Lord. I needed your rescue. And Lord, I want to direct others to you. I want to point them to that same rescue. I want to point them to that same relationship with you that I have the opportunity to live in. And so, Father, what's my piece of the puzzle? And so don't stop thinking about this series. Don't wrap it up in our minds and then we move on. Lord, use me. Use me to love the way you love. Use me to minister the way you minister. God, I want my godly compassion for the broken to never end. I never want to be in a place where religion gets me so bound up that I can't see the hurting and stop and point them to Jesus Christ. Christian life, I love you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to see the way you're responding through this time, through the hurt around you. We're excited to see how God continues to use this body of people in our city. We are believing for awesome things. We are believing for miracles around us. We are believing that God is going to continue to use Christian life to lead the way in godly compassion. And so I just want to encourage you to further dive into this story, further dive into His Word, but let it be based out of a relationship with Jesus Christ. Don't forget to get on and continue to register for our services. This helps us understand how we can serve you better. It also helps us understand what we need to do as we continue to walk out during this crazy time of the COVID-19 virus. Your participation, registering, and all these little extra things that we're having you do really helps us minister to the fullest capabilities. And so we love you, Christian Life. We pray that you have an awesome rest of the week. We're excited to see you again this Sunday, whether you're coming to our first or second services or you're getting online. Make sure to download the Church Center app. Continue to register through the events tab. We appreciate you getting involved. Continue to get on our social media platforms. Interact with us in whatever way you can at this time. We love to continue relationship. Even though it looks different at times and feels different, we love to still be in relationship with you. So have an awesome week, Christian Life.